Okay, let's go ahead and get started here and see where this takes us. Off to a pretty late start. It's 9:15 here, so I don't have any huge aspirations of what I'm going to get done. But if I didn't try doing a stream tonight, I was probably going to end up in bed. So we'll see if you guys can keep me awake this time. Because we got a lot of things we need to paint. If we want to finish, if we want to think about doing something else after Historicon, which I don't want to do Byzantines after Historicon. Not because I'm not enjoying these guys, not because it's not turning out well. I want a clean slate. I want a clean slate. Okay. This cavalry dude right here. All right, we got some chainmail we need to put on him, so let's go ahead and put that in here. And there is some rumbling to the weather. I don't know that that's going to affect us at all. But if I get disconnected for whatever reason, it hasn't happened in a long time, but if I get disconnected, I won't reconnect. We're done for the evening. We'll call that a sign. There's my sign. All right. Let's go ahead and paint his helmet too while we've got this color out there. Yep, late start. I'm glad you came on here. Otherwise, oh, you hear that? Got the storm coming. Yeah, I had false hopes thinking I was going to get a lot done while the wife wasn't around this week, but that didn't happen. Kind of hard to get it rolling. So, all right, where the hell's my leather brown? That may be it. We're going to put some more leather brown down. Yeah, but if I didn't make an attempt to try to sign on here, I was just going to end up in bed. I'm not particularly tired, but I also don't feel like I should have a bunch of caffeine in the form of coffee to stay up just to paint. So, because any way you look at it, I got to be up at 5. I got to be up at 5 or I'm going to be rushed going to work, and that pretty much sucks. Yeah, I don't want to work on these guys on my way back from Historicon. And not because they're not turning out well. I just want to be thinking about something else. So it's not likely at this point, of course it could change at any moment, it is not likely that I'm going to roll into the other elements that I need to paint for the Comnenans. We're going to stop at the Constantinians and we'll pick them up at some later date. But I want to work on something new on my way back from Historicon. That's what I'm thinking. So we will see. I actually made a couple of awards already. I think I've got like 4 of them made. So yeah, I thought I'd have more time to on my own to get stuff done, but between the other things that I need to do when I get home, spend some time with a daughter. You know, it's not like it sucks. It's just I had planned on doing A and now I'm doing Q. So it's no big deal. What color is the... Ah, okay. We did like a red-brown on both of those. All right. We're going to stop trying to paint this thing then because I like the idea of that. And, you know, we'll have to cut off early if it ends up being a low intensity night. But, you know, whatever it is that I get painted is better than not having tried it at all. So if I could make myself go to sleep in a moment, I would just go to sleep now and wake up at 4. Get an extra. I may do that anyways. That'll allow me to paint for 2 hours in the morning. The problem with that is those 2 hours will fly by, and the next thing I know, it's like, man, I gotta go to work. The hell? I may do that though. If it ends up being slow, I'll get out of here and wake up at 4. That's when I do most of my good painting anyways. Okay, and white is dead-ish. Not too bad. Who are you traveling up to Historicon with? Oh, you're gone. Doesn't bode well. A little bit more of a lighter color. All right. What's up next? The fleshy bits? We can go ahead and do the bow. Man, it is a slow start. We don't want to use this. That's a brush with a very particular set of skills. We don't want to burn that thing out on that one. Don't want to use those real precise brushes unless we have to. Save them for a rainy day, so to speak. I actually like the light colored bows a little bit better. But I think as long as I'm consistent with what color I use in each army, I think I'll be happy with it. But I tend to like the lighter bows, the lighter colored spears. They pop a little bit better. Nordic, there you are. I am on late. Yeah, I couldn't get started until about 9:15. Well, I could have started about 9, and I figured, let me go ahead and shower first. I have to do it anyways, so. Yeah, I don't know how long I'll be on for because, well, you're here now, so I'm saved. But a lot of low activity, and, I thought I was going to get a lot done this week, but with the wife not being here, I've just kind of been spending some time with the daughter, which is always a good thing, but it doesn't leave much time for anything else. So, and I had to do some errands and stuff, and watched some TV with her. On Sunday, we watched Full Metal Jacket. You hear what you do best. That's bust balls and entertain everyone. Yeah, so watch Full Metal Jacket on Sunday. I've been wanting to watch that with her for a little while, and we're working our way through the Kenobi thing, an episode a night. So even with that, it was it got too late last night. I figured, well, let's go ahead and do something, even if it's only for an hour. So. We get enough people on here, we'll do the quiz again, but we need a few people on here, so. You're in the lead by 1 point. You got 8, so. Have ever given thought to wargaming Vietnam? No, I'm not interested in it at all. I have not given it a thought at all. If I was going to do stuff, if I was going to do modern stuff, post-World War II stuff, I would do make-believe shit with make-believe nations. And it would be mostly for comedy. And that's probably what I would do. It's too much of an ask to create a bunch of terrain too. It's just overwhelming, and it's just too big a thing. And I don't really want to play something like that unless it looks like it's something out of like War Games Illustrated. It's their own fault for giving these nice pictures of miniature games. I don't want to use felt or none of that shit. So, it's funny you bring that up because I saw that somebody posted somewhere they were going to make another edition of Force on Force, And I picked up that set of rules maybe 10 years ago, before it went out of print, and I haven't done anything with it. So it's just, my motivation is really low to do anything that Vietnam, yeah. Doesn't really interest me. Can't say that I've ever played a Vietnam game. I'm not opposed to it. It just, I'd rather do something like Bush Wars in Africa, you know. But I'd rather just create my own narrative. That's the word I was thinking about yesterday. I can never remember that word when I want to say it. I'd rather create my own narrative with using some fake countries, and be some kind of skirmish thing or whatever. So it's funny. One day I was kind of thinking, and I made something along the lines of a multiplayer type of scenario around, and by multiplayer meaning there's different factions on the table. Something based around along the lines of, let me think of what the hell the name of that movie is. The Wild Geese. Something along like that Wild Geese movie, something like that. So you've got European mercenaries, and you've got militia in the middle of the Civil War and stuff like that. Really, there's a lot of potential for it. So, but it would be 20 millimeter. I've got some troops painted up for it. 20 millimeter individual men, that kind of thing. Will, welcome. Contemplating getting through JHQ Terrain Maker hexes. Thought about using felt such as the hobbyist of me. Said, nah, go with the Terrain Maker hexes. I remember when Terrain Maker hexes came out in the mid-'80s. It was like the big rage, and I haven't seen anybody use them recently. Land warfare gaming stops at the end of the 19th century. Yeah, you can't do it all. Can't do it all. So anyways, I hadn't seen Full Metal Jacket in a long time. I think I've only seen the movie once before. So this is the second viewing. But the second half of the movie I thought was particularly boring. More than I expected it to be. So. And the only reason we watched that, because we were watching Stranger Things, and I told her, hey, you see that guy who's the doctor? He ends up being like the main character in this Vietnam movie called Full Metal Jacket. We'll have to watch that. That's the only reason we picked that one. I remember it was available on, was it Netflix or whatever it was on? So, anyhow, yeah, Subtle Brown. Yeah, I had a buddy of mine who was all into the Vietnam War stuff, and I'm generally not interested when it's really one-sided kind of stuff. You love the scene in the chopper with the door gunner. I forgot about that one. Yeah. And I saw Platoon recently in November when I came back on my Mexico trip. And I guess I've seen that one 3 times. I like Platoon better. And I've seen Apocalypse Now once, and I did not like Apocalypse Now at all. So, you're slogging through Season 3 of Stranger Things. I'm finding Season 3 too hard to get into. Yeah, Season 4 is worse. Season 1 is epic. Season 1 is just really, 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 really good. It was one of those things that people told me it was really good, and then I saw it, and yeah, it was better than I expected it to be. So, as soon as I saw it playing, and they had the intro of it, and it's got the music, which is like, because you don't know what the hell it's about. Now you're like, okay, well, it's not really that scary of a thing, but, and it has like the little crackle, like the little like white spots and everything, just like stuff used to look in the 80s. And, yeah. But they got all the fashion shit wrong. Season 3's what, like an 84? And then this last one's in 86. And I remember 84 pretty well. I would have been 13. I remember 86 really well. And like, they got all the stuff. They got a lot of the stuff wrong, you know. But, yeah. See, and season one was one of the things that was the best about season one is a lot of these shows fall into this trap that the adults end up being the cowards and the kids are the brave ones. And that's bullshit. Because I've been a kid before, and kids are scared of crap. And season one of Stranger Things, the kids were scared of things. You know, now they're like, now they're back in the mode where they're the bold ones and stuff like that. But season one, they're scaredy cats, as they should be. You're a 10-year-old kid or 11-year-old kid or however old they were. I think 11. Yeah, 82, 11. Yeah, because the kids are like this. The characters are the same age I was in that year. So, anyhow, I generally don't like series because they leave you hanging, and then you're like, crap, now I gotta watch another one, and I got other things I'd rather do. There's other things I'd rather do than just sit there and watch a show that turns out the same way, whether I watch it or not. Doesn't really matter. You miss the 80s, such great cartoons and toys. Well, I don't want to be a kid again in the 80s. I didn't enjoy my childhood. I'm not saying that I had an abusive childhood, but I had to go without a lot of things that a lot of my friends had. And I don't want to go through that again. So, you're not really alive until you have a job and you can buy yourself whatever you want. I'm not saying you can buy a Lamborghini. I'm just saying, you can buy yourself whatever the hell it is you need. Not like, you got to wait until your birthday. Screw that crap. But no, I don't want to be a kid again. Now, which one of these is a white one? I'm tempted not to finish Stranger Things just because I can't get into season 3. Okay? Don't want to be a Toys R Us kid. No. No, what was the cool toy? I don't know that we hit. Remember the competitor for Toys R Us? Well, I don't know if they had it where you're at. It was called. They had one of them in Jacksonville. It's something like Lionel's Play World or something like that. That place was freaking huge. I remember those stores had this big Guns and Navarone play set. I'm talking about when I'm probably like in 1980, 81 or whatever. There's this Guns and Navarone play set. And that was a movie that I saw tons of time as a kid. And of course, the place had nothing to do with the freaking movie other than it was a mountain with some guns on it. That's it. But I remember it being like freaking huge or, 2 foot tall or something like that. And I always wanted one of those, But moved around a lot in the 80s. All the issues come with that, yeah. Yeah, something like Lionel's Play World or something like that. Maybe it was tied in with Toys R Us because I think their logo was a damn kangaroo too. Now that I think about it. Oh, a kangaroo instead of a giraffe. I don't know. I'll have to find out what the... It's always interesting going back and finding out, which store is turned into what, and, It's like a rabbit hole, People call it surfing around on the internet, but it really is learning about shit. Whether it's stuff that interests one person or another. Can't make any money off of it, but it's interesting to go like, I wonder what happened to the store. You look up and find out what merged into something else. Yeah, we moved to this town in 81 and I haven't left. So, but you know, I've moved a few times. I don't want to move again. And I've been here since I've been in this house since 2003, and I don't want to move. You know. You got the Road to Tokyo book for Command Decision. I was saddened to find they didn't have any large-scale amphibious assaults in the book. You had that setup, Green Army men versus Great Germans. I seem to recall had some Higgins boats. Gonna make a replica of Tower War, Paleo, and launch some amphibious assault. There's a remember that magazine that GHQ used to put out, their little quarterly magazine, whatever it was called. I think Command Post or something like that. Somebody had made Terroir or Paleo, one of those two, using GHQ geohexes, and of course it was just black and white because it was a thing you got in the mail. I remember whenever the hell it was. It must have been in the mid '90s or whatever. And somebody had made the whole, you know, with individual hexes. I don't remember how wide it was, but it was obviously was much narrower. It must have been Paleo, and yeah, that's they specifically had that one as one of the battles. I don't know. I guess they had their own set of rules. I don't know if they. I think at that time I don't know if they were posted yet. Whatever the hell they were called. Nobody seems to be playing them. That doesn't mean they suck. That just means nobody seems to be playing them. So you know how people are with rules. They're always nomadic, always looking for the latest and the greatest thing. So, oh, stop your booming. But one of the coolest toys that was around from the 80s, probably the coolest toy, and it's one that gets forgotten frequently, and I wish I still had them, but it was the remember Stompers? The little vehicles that have one AA battery and you can put them on there, and they made off-road cars and you can switch out the tires and put soft tires or hard ones. They didn't do anything other than they went forward, and they had little running lights on them and stuff like that. And they also made Stomper tanks, and those were pretty freaking cool. They didn't have a huge variety of vehicles they made, but they had a couple different paint schemes for. They had an M60A3 and a Tiger 1 and a Centurion and a T62, and that may have been everything they had. They didn't have a Sherman for whatever reason, so I ended up having a Centurion and a couple of the M60s, and a couple of the Tigers. Oh, and they also made an SDKFZ 250/9. That's the smaller half track with the little 20 millimeter turret in the back. I had one of those, and they were cool. They're worth a fortune if they're like, you know, unopened. But who the hell collects freaking toys? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. You know, it doesn't make any sense to like collect things and just not do anything with them. I mean, but that's me. You know, I'm not gonna. I would at least take them out of the package or something like that. But you know, yeah, the tanks were really freaking cool. I mean, really, really cool. You know, I don't remember how much they were. They were probably $12 or something like that. They weren't like colossally expensive or anything. So. Speaking of Tigers, just finished the entire building process for the 1/35th scale King Tiger I've been working on. One of, 471 or something like that? They made less than 500 of them. Is it a Henschel turret or a Porsche turret? Probably a Henschel. They only made like 50 of the Porsches. I used to hate the way the Porsche turret looks, and I'd say I probably like it more now. But it's got that shell trap front where you can just, if your shell hits the front of the turret at the wrong angle, it can get deflected right into the top of the hull where the driver's compartment is, and game over. Believe it or not, I prefer my Panzers gray. I'd rather do Germans pre 1943. Henschel turret for this one, yeah. That's probably more common, so. I prefer my Germans gray. The Panzer's gray. Goes with the colors of the infantry a little bit better. We need to turn a little bit more fan going on here. All right, I guess time for the fleshy bits. You prefer the early war period because I love the look of the Panzer Gray other vehicles. I do too. And back when I was doing that stuff, there was none of this, does it have any blue in it? The whole blue controversy. I like it with a little bit of blue, but I've seen some models that just have way too much blue in it. But again, what do we know? So like if I was going to buy something like, well, I have these. I have a bunch of Opel Blitz trucks that are, half-ass assembled. I'll probably do them in Panzer Gray because I could see, doing something in 44, still having some gray colored trucks, but the tanks are going to have the latest and the greatest paint schemes. So, I don't want to have yellow trucks and then need to do a 1941 scenario and the trucks are, ahead of their time. In other words, it's easier to use a gray vehicle, a gray, a truck or a Kubelwagen or something like that in 1944 that's still painted gray than having something in 41 that is armor dark yellow, as we used to call it. One thing I do love the look of early war period are the armored car recon battalions for the Germans. You like those 232s, huh? The big nasties. Design a scenario involving armored car battalion scouting any positions, making initial contact with the enemy, and then supported by panzers. Yeah. The 231s and 232s and the 222s and yeah, I had that German recon set from Airfix that came with a 222 and a Kubelwagen and motorcycle, a Zundap motorcycle. That's what I always like. That's my second favorite period is North Africa. I like Eastern Front and then North Africa. North Africa is particularly... The bad thing that North Africa has is that, unless you did something really specific, the infantry are just kind of, a sideshow almost. Because of the engagement distances can be so far, because you don't have, patches of woods and stuff like that. But I think the British are a lot more interesting than the Russians. The Germans are always interesting, but I think the British are more interesting than the Russians. And the British are kind of, and I think both sides are really well balanced there, You do, those armored recon cars look great. Thought about 35th scale just to build one and paint one. I had the Tamiya. We always called it Tamiya, whether it was correct or incorrect. We always called it Tamiya. But the 232 kit from them. You know what I hate about early war? I hate 1939 and 1940 where the Germans used those stupid berets. It just looks dumb as shit. That falls under the one of the things that I'm not doing. I'm not painting those Germans with those ridiculous berets. They just look wrong. They just look wrong. And not a fan of those. Just like if I was doing World War I am not a fan of those little the German the leisure caps, you know, when they're not wearing a helmet. They have no brim or anything. They just look stupid, you know. But Tony going strong. Yeah, you guys have woke me up a little bit. You have nearly 100 6mm tanks, Battle of France, 1940, 60 some American Shermans and Stuarts, about a dozen T-34s, plus a bunch of North African tanks, British and Italians. Okay. Yeah, the German beret looks stupid. It must have been padded or something like that. It looks great on the British troops. It's because it's a different style beret. It looks great on the Brits, but the German one is like oversized and stupid looking. You know, at least to me, I don't care for it. And the Polish campaign, I'm not painting these white stars, white crosses on them. It's like, who is this? The Swiss? I know it didn't last very long because after that they went to France and they changed that up. But I want to say they had some crosses in yellow too, solid crosses in yellow. If you did World War One, it'd have to be early war because I like the spiked helmets. I would do early because I don't want to do trench. And I would do French with them because you could do the French with the kepis and the uniform that is red and blue. And yeah, it's outlandish, but perfect. You know, I would definitely, if I did World War One, it would definitely be French and German. But I'm not doing World War One. You know, I can't be into everything. Wise man once said, "I can't be into everything." French early war offensive are interesting. Oh, welcome, Kevin. Discovered an army with a unique feature. The Breton army has a horde element that turns into a four-war band when contacts enemy. Yep, they do. King of the Bretons. Yep. I like that. What army is that? What that Asian army is? It like the Huan or something like that? That have like women throwing dirt or something like that. It's like hordes of women on oxen throwing dirt in the air to confuse the enemy. I think that's the same list that actually has 6 cav stands, so a deep cav stand that they're all tied together with chains. Just weird shit. It's totally weird stuff. I think it's a Huan. It's the Huan as opposed to the Carlos. Or the Paco. And how many people we got here now? Everybody woken up? 4? Let me know if you guys want to go back to doing the quiz. Nordic's here. Kevin's here. Might help keep me awake. Whew. I haven't had much of an opportunity to play like trivia stuff. You know, like at bars or whatever. And I think it'd be useful because I know stuff that most people don't know. Like if it's anything like flags, capitals, countries, history, actually flags, countries, and capitals and that stuff, geography stuff, I know better than history. Or I used to know better than history. Because I've always been into that. Working on Sung Dynasty, Fire Lance Cavalry as you paint. Weird unit. Have you seen the ones I did? I'll bring them. They're handy. I had to make them myself. Because I wanted them to have fire lances on them. I think they're here. Oh, you know what? They're probably still in the traveling container. Not there. The problem with putting them in these trays is then I get lazy. I don't want to put them back in my display thing. Must be these. Nope. They're in the case outside. They were in the other case outside in the living room. Bring it back. No, they should be down here. Why didn't I see them? There they are. Hidden in plain sight. And these are guys that are based on the Greer book, so they're inaccurate. The figures are inaccurate, but they're the ones that Essex made, and they're the ones that Naismith made. These guys happen to be Naismith. And they put them on Essex armored horses. They're supposed to be knights in DBA. Shit, we need more light than that. Huh, let's turn on our little buddy here. So this is the standard cavalry unit that I did. Come on, focus, damn it. But I added a little piece of tubing next to it and glued it on there. And I don't remember what exactly that I did. I think I used epoxy or whatever, but that's what I went with. You know, they're the same. The cavalry figures, because this can have this unit or a cavalry unit, at least in DBA. And the cavalry figures don't have any of the scale armor on the horses, and it's the same figures. They're painted a little bit different, but they don't have the little launchers on there. So, yeah, these are my Sung guys. So that when I finally converted these guys to Eastern Army, yeah, they're Chinese. They're Sung Chinese. So, you know, you're talking around 900 AD to 1200. Yeah, you went out and bought Khorasan. So the problem is when I did my Sung army, Khorasan wasn't around. So when I decided to make my Sung army to 3.0 standards, I only can do two things. I either replace them all and make them more accurate with the Khorasan, or buy like 2 packs of stuff and use what I already did, even though it's based on old sources. And that's what I decided to do, instead of rebuilding the whole damn army, because I wouldn't have rebuilt the army, because it's actually not a very... I like the army. It has a lot of weaknesses, mostly being that it does not have a lot of heavy foot to protect the bows. The bows are kind of, you know, out there hung out to dry, and it doesn't have very much mounted. So it's got a lot of deficiencies. They're still cool, but you know, they're kind of weird. But they're honestly, the reason I built that army is because nobody had it, and it has 2 artillery pieces in DBA, and 2 artillery pieces is one too many. Artillery is really nasty. until you fought me with them a couple times, and you're like, well, we're not going to let Tony win the game that way, so let's go after him. But if you get indecisive while you're having hell rain down on you, you're going to get hosed. So. Yeah. Well, the other thing is you can go through. I'm just not going to. You have them as an ally, so only 3 elements total. Okay. There you go. I'm not going to play Keeping Up with the Joneses. Just because some better figures come out, I'm not going to dump everything that I have and repaint them. I'm not going to do that. Because it's just such a sense of frustration. So I thought about it for a while and decided, okay, well, that's pretty much the 2 tracks I can do. The 3 tracks is don't convert them at all. And the other one was like, okay, well, buy some more figures of the same vintage that you have and finish them up, or just start brand new with Coruscant. And I'm like, I really don't want to spend $60 rebuilding this army. So, and I'm happy with them, Hey, they could come up with some archaeological evidence in 10 years and find out that the Coruscant guys aren't correct either. The Coruscant guys look awesome, but that was the whole reason I didn't go that route, is because I already had all the figures for the army for the most part. I didn't want to start from scratch. But that's actually happened a couple times with Coruscant figures to me. I was just getting done with my Turks. I literally was paying my last stand, and Coruscant comes up with Ottoman Turks. I'm like, well, son of a bitch, if I'd have known that, I would have bought a few guys and mixed them in. So I'm like, don't worry about it. And they've done it in like a couple other armies. It's just coincidence, but irony and coincidences. I like communists more than irony and coincidences. So. To say that I do not like irony and coincidences is an understatement, especially because I got to deal with that nonsense all the time at work. So, but I was like, okay, I can eat. What am I going to do? Keep buying new figures? No, you need to be happy with what you have and move on. Make the best choice you can before you start the army, and deal with the consequences. Your Ottomans and Timurids are Coruscant. I don't think I mentioned, but I also have a bachelor's degree in archaeology. Digging around for stuff, huh? I used history as electives, and I was interested in the history even if I didn't wargame it at the time. But I wasn't going to be a history teacher. I hate writing. I really detest writing. So that would not be a good way to proceed. I also don't do well in situations that are political. So working at some kind of a college or university is not. I am a person that likes action above procedure. So just doing busy work and shit like that just doesn't interest me. Let's get real things accomplished. So I don't do what I love for a living, but at the same time, I don't do what I love for a living and get burned out on it. So. But I cannot stand writing. And reading puts me to sleep. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's extremely relaxing. And then there's a lot of history I'm just not interested in. Like, I don't care about American history at all. It's like, oh, we don't have enough wars here, so let's read about laws. I don't give a shit about laws. Didn't like it. Did not like a lot about our school system. Yeah, I'm not raising somebody else's kid. Sorry. I'm just not going to. You know, succession of a person does not define who they are. A lot of people are defined by it. I'm certainly not. I am certainly not defined about it. I don't even like to talk about it in my free time. It does not define who I am one bit whatsoever. It has certainly affected my personality. You know, so like all the bullshit I have to deal with at work related to, you know, certain individuals, I'm not interested in interacting with those type of individuals on my free time. You know, so, but there's a lot of people that, you know, that's all they talk about. That's one of the reasons I enjoy this little communication thing, is because it's being able to talk to people that are passionate about the same hobby. Like just in a regular setting, you know, there's no war gamers to talk to. There's no people that are interested in history. It's like everybody like talks about what they do for a living and freaking sports. And I don't want to talk about either one of those two things. For starters, everybody I've encountered who's into sports is like a big crybaby. Yeah, well, we got cheated out of this and the refs did. It's like, oh, come on, man. I've heard it a million times. Move on to something else. You know, growing up in a college town, I'm like, please, get that away from me. So, you know, it's difficult finding folks that, it's difficult finding folks that, you know, to talk about stuff that, you know, we're really passionate about. I thought about possibly writing historical fiction novels. I haven't gone through with that. Yeah, I would never do that. I hate writing. I detest writing. Tony got an email. It's because I get massive writer's block. And, you know, I'm just wondering, I'm going to do all this work. Is people aren't even going to read it? You know, you got an email from Museum Miniatures today. They just released their Norman range. Some of the nicest figures I've seen. Yeah, I wish their renders on their site were what the figures look like. Now that I have seen 2 or 3 different armies of what they look like on the website and what they look like in person, because other people around me have ordered them, they look great in person. The new museum stuff looks great. The stuff on their site is not representative of what it is. If you're expecting to get stumpy looking guys that all look the same, that's not what you end up getting. So, may not want to play DBA, but I do just chatting with you and everyone else their draw. Hey, I've played other things before. I just do this because it's a way to learn about other periods. The games are over really quick, but I'm a World War II guy at heart. I've just done a lot of World War II gaming, and I'm real particular about how I handle that. I'm not interested in, you know, most things are too zoomed out for my taste. So the narrative isn't specific enough. The games don't generate a narrative that is specific enough to my liking, you know, for World War II games. So this game is extremely abstract, and there's no way I would put up with that if it was a World War II game. You know, somebody asked me the other day, have you played Phil Barker's World War II rules? I said, hell no. I'm not playing that. First of all, I'm not learning another one of his games. I just don't have enough soul left in me to have to decipher through his rules. So DBA's it. I'm not learning any more of his games. So the only sport I get into is baseball. Baseball fan, I'm far from complaining. The only thing baseball related I've ever done is back in about 1981, I ended up getting one of those battery-powered, I call it a video game, but it isn't. And, you know, it is all plastic. It's about the size of this, or at least I remember being about the size of this. and it would have little dots, right? And then you have to try to time it to hit the bat or whatever, and it go, and you'd have a score. It'd score. It was fun. I played that a long time, a long time. Imagine he made a World War II game. Well, the problem is you got a World War II game. I believe his game is like there's heavy tanks, medium tanks, light tanks, but every heavy tank is the same. As a World War II freaking nut and a 1/35th scale modeler, you think that's going to work for me? Hell no. It's a Panzer IV. Well, which Panzer IV is? Well, it's got a long 75 millimeter gun. Well, is it a 43 caliber one or is it a 48 caliber one? It's a 48 caliber one. All right, so is that an H or a J? I don't know. I got to know all that stuff, or I'm not interested in playing. You're going to tell me that, in that game, T-34s are going to be the same as Panzer IVs, are going to be the same as Shermans. That just doesn't have the amount of, it's not going to have the dialogue and narrative that is going to satisfy, Not every heavy tank is the same. Yeah. You're moving these things around. It doesn't matter whether it's a King Tiger or a JS2 or, come on, you got to be kidding me. Who the hell wants to play that? I'm gonna spend time painting miniatures as slow as I paint them to go through a game. It's just like 1-4 you win. No. Well, we were coming up with our own set of rules, but without having, somebody that I could play with on a regular schedule like Mitch, like every week. We basically weren't making any progress. But, we were doing stuff along the side. We're doing skirmish, and we wanted to do 1-to-1 scale, or close to 1-to-1 scale. So we're using 20 millimeter figures, and 1 centimeter equals a meter. So the figures are about an inch tall. So they're like 2.54 meters tall. So they're off a little bit. So there's a little bit of compression, maybe 25% or maybe even less than that. But it was pretty close to actual scale. So one of the things, if you're doing actual scale with vehicles, you have to consider stuff like, what is the minimum distance that a gun can fire that it's, that could hurt the troops? And what I mean by that is, I'm telling you, this is why I'm super anal retentive about this. Because I've played Command Decision and stuff like that, and I'm done with that type of a level stuff. I've done a lot of it. So let's grab a tank. Let's grab a tank, any tank. Let's grab a tank that I painted back when I was sealing everything with semi-gloss. This is a Britannia Models Firefly. Yep, we went down the World War II rabbit hole, didn't we? Guy was running a tire company and he insisted on rolling up point blank range on a Sherman company. What a moron. That outnumbered his tanks 3-1. He got blown to pieces. What a moron. I said, dude, you are aware that 88 can penetrate all Allied armor at range. Why are you closing a point blank range when you're not as vulnerable as the Shermans? You gave up your advantage. And the guy looked at me and said, it's just a game. And I said, but at least play the game as if you have a brain. Play the game like if you're in the vehicle. Tick the guy off. We never left the World War II rabbit hole. Okay, so here is my... This poor thing was in a... This is a piece of sprue. So this is a resin kit from Britannia Models, which, by the way, I hate their infantry because they all look the same. And they have this big, huge head, and they're all the same. But anyways, I even painted some little markings. Anyhow, this is all resin and whatnot. But anyhow, if you're talking truly 1-to-1 scale, one thing that is important is there is... Let's get a guy. Oh, crap. Unfortunately, we can't do that. Let's get my Hasagawa Panther. Okay. Because I only have Brits up here. So let's get a Brit up here. People forget Tiger tank turret was hand cranked and not as movable as a Sherman. Well, it did have hydraulic, but it's significantly slower. You always like the Firefly. Me too. It's like the first Super Sherman. And I love those Israeli Super Shermans. They look awesome. Zanj Revolt has skirmisher being thrown by stone by hand. Yep, they sure do. And I think the Swiss do too. I think Swiss do. So say you've got a Panther that is shooting at some British infantry, all right? And you're playing an actual scale. One of the considerations is this gun there's a couple things. First of all, it has limited depression. So I was calculating, and this sounds really complicated, but it isn't. You got to figure out about approximately what height the gun is, okay, off the ground. And then you know what your angle of depression is, and then you can figure out what the minimum distance this shell is going to be able to land in front of the tank, okay? And it's actually pretty freaking far, okay? So, like, if this was actual scale, you can't hit the ground here where this infantry is. It's too close. You know, it may end up being like 3 times this distance. And of course, then you've got a burst radius of the 75 millimeter HE, which may be something like so. So, you know, basically, you've got a blind zone for the main armament of, you know, I'm going to say, you know, 30 feet or something like that around the vehicle easily. So a lot of rules don't incorporate for that, and that's really critical. So that's where, you know, your whole machine gun comes into account. If you've got any pistol ports, they can come into account. But stuff like that, you know, and it's not geared towards, you know, I've got 12 tanks on one side. It's like you got freaking one, okay? And you've got maybe some half tracks that are open top, so the infantry can throw grenades, and all kinds of bad shit can happen if you take a grenade inside of a half track, you know. But that's the kind of stuff that, you know, that's the kind of stuff that when you're talking about World War I and World War II and skirmish, you have to take into consideration. So that's what the whole machine gun and the turret machine gun are made for. Exactly. You know, you shouldn't let infantry get this close to a tank. You know, so anyhow, yeah. Yeah, and you've got, you know, if it's fighting like a Sherman, the Sherman can rotate its gun a hell of a lot faster. So it's one of those, you know, you need to get around and turn your turret and hit them before they hit you kind of scenario. So, anyhow, this was a pre-made already. I forget who the hell makes this. Unimax. This is a pre-done Sherman. So, I want to do a bunch of 1/72nd scale Shermans because it's a tank nobody has any love for, because let's be honest with you, they're freaking ugly. But there's a way to make them look really unique with different equipment and stuff like that. And there was a shit ton of them, so you're going to encounter some. Yeah, but all kinds. I got some Matchbox ones. I took it apart because I was going to paint it. This is take it apart with screws and stuff. But this is I prefer 1/72nd scale tanks with the 20 millimeter figures. I think they scale out a little bit better. The 76 are a little too small for my liking, but you know, honestly, I'd probably use them together. As long as you don't have the same vehicle next to each other, you should be fine. You know. Anywho, that's my World War II show. My World War II show and tell. Some of my World War II show and tell. It's a huge reason why tanks seldom engage in close quarters combat infantry is around. Rarely happen, especially with enough infantry support. Yeah, you don't have the visibility. You got to have something in the rules where the tanks can't react to every single thing that you see as the player, because they have extremely limited visibility when you get that close. You know, they're basically operating in faith, so to speak. I've seen someone. Oh, so many people say, "Oh, it's a skirmish game." Well, what do you have? You have tanks? Yeah, we got 14 on each side. I'm like, well, that's not a skirmish game, you know. Maya have hornet nest throwers. Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy shit. There's all kinds of crazy shit. Mayans are not an army that could withstand being in an open tournament for sure. But I'm going more away from building stuff that's for that. I'm more interested in building stuff for like scenarios and shit like that. So now we're up to 7 players. You guys want to start the quiz again? I got a half hour we can do the quiz. You guys want to do the World War II quiz? Do some more questions on that? Let me know. Because Maya are on my list of armies to do. Now there's a lot of people that make them. Honestly, I love the gladiator figures. If I was going to do Aztecs, I would definitely do the gladiator figures. They look really cool. Have to pick up your wife from work. Okay. Man, working late. All right, Will, thanks for stopping by. All right, let's put a little bit more fleshy bits on this guy. What's Nordic say? I'm game if anybody else is. Oh, you need some competition because you're way ahead of everybody else. Oh, Kevin's got 4 points. Who else is on here? I don't think Joe's on here anymore. Joe has 5. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to get this army done by Historicon, but we're going to try. Because I'm not going to start another one until these guys are done. I'm not going to, like, have these guys, left. Surprisingly way ahead. Well, you showed up for both nights. You got to be here to have a chance. One of the coolest World War II books I read that I didn't think I was going to like is called, it's the only one of his books that I've read, Stephen Ambrose. It's, no, it's not Band of Brothers. Why would I read that? There's a movie, there's this miniseries made out of it. It is his Citizen Soldiers. And the Citizen Soldiers, what's cool about it is it's a lot of vignettes. A lot like little scenarios that happen in the war with individual things, almost kind of like, almost like little skirmish scenarios, and it jumps all over the place. Sometimes you've got a general, sometimes you've got some private, and somewhere else, but it all focuses on the U.S. stuff. So, gladiator figures are chunky. That a Macedonian army with gladiator figures. I got some of the gladiator Macedonians and they're really, really spindly. The gladiator figures I was talking about was their ancients. Their ancients in particular are really chunky. And their Aztecs and Tlaxcalans and Mixtecs, those guys are really nice looking figures. And they're kind of bigger than most 15s, but the Conquistador figures I have are almost 20 millimeter size. So I think that they would work really well together. So, as I've got enough, the Conquistadors are only four freaking stands of them, and the rest of them are all Tlaxcalans, which is honestly way too many Spanish for Tlaxcalans, but I guess Phil just figured that's, fighting potential or whatever because of the steel weapons is how it would but still, they have a third of their army is Spanish when in reality it should be like less than a tenth. So, I'd like to see a video game company put a World War II from the viewpoint of the German soldier of the Wehrmacht. No need to touch on the SS and such, but just the ordinary German soldier. The Thracians look like dwarves with bad attitude. There used to be a video game. There used to be a video game. Well, there still is, called Half-Life. It came out in like 98, and it spurned a lot of mods for it. A lot of mods, including the most common one being one called Counter-Strike, which I understand people still play it. But Half-Life spurned a lot of this. It was a great game. It was actually a game that I picked up on a Sunday night at like 8:00 p.m. And I, back in my 20s, I spent all night playing it and ended up going to work without going to sleep that night. It was that good. But in that game, one of the mods was called Day of Defeat. And you could either play, there was two scenarios. It was either Brits versus Germans or Germans versus Americans. And you could pick either side. And, you would get put on whatever team. I don't think, you may have been able to pick what team you were right off the bat, but the interesting thing about it is it allowed you to change what the name of your character is from round to round. So you didn't have to go with your normal handle. You didn't say, for instance, you were a guy that played, a guy named Tommy Cooker, and sometimes you would play, Brit, sometimes you'd play a German, sometimes you'd play an American. It'd be pretty silly to, some of those. But so you changed it from side to side. So I always liked, when I played the Germans, my character was always called the Führer's bitch. And tried to get a rise out of people with that, Play a German guy named the Führer's bitch. But I forget what the other one was, but when I played the Allies. But anyhow, that was pretty good. Think about it, we can play the view of the Russian soldier from World War II, so why not the Germans? Yeah. Preaching to the choir here. The Russians are just as bad as the Germans, so that's why I like Eastern Front. Which bad guy do you want to be? My dad was a teenager when World War II was going on, and of course he didn't live in this country yet. He hadn't come over here yet, but he never could understand why the Allies dealt with the Russians to begin with, especially since they pulled that fast one on Finland. But I know the reasons, but it didn't make any sense to him. It'd be like, damn commie bastards. let them kill each other to the last man. Day of Defeat is a full-on game now. It is? I will always side with the Germans over the Russians. Well, the thing about it is that I would agree with you. I would agree with you 20 years ago, before the Russian archives were open, because we only had one viewpoint. Like if they talk about the Russian front, it was only from the German viewpoint. And to be honest with you, that's not very fair. Even if basically what you're hearing is bullshit from the German reports, and you're going to get bullshit from the Russian reports, at least there's other reports to corroborate with each other and try to get the reality somewhere between them. But I think it's easier to associate with the Germans than the Russians, because the Germans are more Western. So their way of thinking is a little bit more, they have the whole, master race bullshit thing going on behind. But I'm just talking about your regular, Wehrmacht Joes. It's easier to kind of understand to relate to them more than, than the Russian peasant stock guys, I'm thinking. But still, I like the Eastern Front because of, of that. There's a good German film about a company before they went to Stalingrad, spent most of the time drinking, womanizing, and playing practical jokes on each other. Huh. I thought that only happened in American movies with American soldiers. I always see growing up, and everything's from the U.S. viewpoint. And these guys are all like fucking around all the time. And I'm wondering, like, how did the U.S. beat anybody in World War II if they were just freaking clowns screwing around all the time? But I guess that happened to everybody, everywhere. But I just could never get into the Pacific. Never got into it. So Day of Defeat is a full-on game, huh? Well, it's been. I don't think I've played it for 20 years. Probably. I'm sure I haven't played it for 20 years. So. And now that I think about it, didn't have some aspects of team. What was that first team game that came out? Where you basically had your character was based on what they did. So whether they were engineer, they could do this or they could do the other one. Team, I forget what it's called. I didn't care for that game very much, but yeah, Half-Life was freaking intense. I couldn't get into the second one, but the original one was freaking awesome. The storyline, what a great freaking storyline. Just brilliant stuff. Hoffman Samatobin. I cannot wait to try the Jenga game. The Jenga rules. I cannot wait to try the Jenga rules. I told Mitch about it yesterday, and I think he's scared because he's more of a shaker than I am. But I can't wait to try that. He's actually, I know a few people that are. You thought people would hate that. Really? Well, it sounds good on paper. I'm sure there's problems with it, with everything else, but I like the concept of it. You know, I like the. We're big fans of not knowing when the hell the game's going to end. So if that does that lovely, then I can't wait to watch it. The games I had here were crazy. Yeah, and you know what? We're not going to play one. We're not going to play a game that's not filmed. So you're going to see the crazy shit from the... We're probably going to do like Romans and Carthaginians. It makes sense to do that. Just imagine if we did Blind General and the Tower. The only problem we're going to have is playing at Mitch's place. His whole floor moves, and his table also moves. So it's almost, I don't know how we're going to do it to have it somewhere else. We'll come up with something, but what poll rules am I going with? Whatever you have written down there. Yeah, I just glanced at them lightly. I don't want to look at things, figure out how to win, and then show them to Mitch. I want to be like, I don't know what the hell this is all about either. And, we may hate it. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. But, the trick is going to be, after you've played it, depending what army you have, if you have an army that you think that you really are better than the other guy, you can start doing some risky pulls so that when it comes back to being the other guy and the other guy gets shoved back, he's got to make decisions. He's got to deal with a tower that's iffy, Yeah, we'll have to get them on the same screen. What we'll have to do is we'll have to use a portable table that sits at the very end of the table. And there's space in the camera that can catch something else, and we'll just have the tower on the far side. I think that's what we'll do. I actually had a set of Jenga, and I think I got rid of it, so I'll have to buy another one. It's worth it. It's worth it. I'll take a whatever, and I don't want to buy some Ching Chang Chung brand. I'll buy the Jenga one, which is like $12 or something like that. Hey, we're worth it. I wasn't expecting the rule that if you got shoved back, you had to pull one, but I like it. It could be extremely chaotic. You was pulling using two hands. Some people only allow pulls with one hand. I'm trying to think how we used to play the game. I think you could play it two-handed. I don't think that's a big deal, by the way. You got to use one hand, and it's your non-dominant hand. Yeah, so the deal with Jenga is Hoffman, I don't know, can't wait to see the games. It may be a while. It may be a month before you see one of that. Unfortunately, there's just too much stuff going on, but we'll see. Hoffman, what he did is he came up with some alternate rules for playing DBA, and DBA normally when you have 4 elements eliminated of your 12, the game's over, unless both sides also have 4, in which case it's sudden death. What he did is suggested you play with a Jenga tower, and the game ends when you knock the tower over. Your army loses. But there's conditions like if you have one of your units recoiled, you got to pull a tile. If you have a unit killed, you have to pull like three pieces. So, I had asked him, I said, well, how many pulls do you get before the tower is going to go over? And he said somewhere between 18 and 32. So that's a pretty big range. I am really interested in trying that out because you're not going to be able to predict when the game is exactly going to end. I just don't want to do it when it's not on camera because I can tell you already that there's going to be some insane shit happening. And it'll be good for yucks, Brother's good at Jenga. He's a farrier, strong and steady hands. Yeah. You got to be good at playing DBA too, though, because it's, if you get recoiled or you get a unit killed, you're going to be the one pulling, and but one thing I was saying is you played a couple times. Like, let's say you have an army that, let's say you're playing Romans versus somebody that has like a ton of skirmishers. Okay? And you know that the army that has the big numbers is going to be doing a lot more recoiling. The other guy is going to be doing more recoiling. So you can start pulling tiles from the bottom. Like, let's say something happens and you have the more solid army, but you got recoiled first. So pull, if you have the tower like this, and here's the different levels. Pull one of these end ones off like the first one up. So then it ends up being like this. And you figure, let's get it over with. Let's start damaging this tower as much as we can so that the other guy has to frickin' deal with a flimsy tower because he's going to be doing most of the recoiling. And I'm wondering if that's going to be the way to go, So, yeah, it's worth playing a couple games, I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? You have a good laugh, you got nothing to lose. You know, just like when we were playing, just like we were playing Blind General. We're not going to always play Blind General. It was just something else to, you know, mix it up a little bit. You know. Welcome, Dirk. Have some fun with it. It's just a game. And I have a feeling somebody like Luke is going to be a significant disadvantage. You know, 4 beers in. Okay, Luke, pull a tile. Pull a piece. Oops. All right, well, it's almost 11 o'clock, so I think I'm going to call it. But thanks for you guys coming in, man. There's 7 of you guys. Just took a little while for everybody to show up, but you played alcohol chess where every piece is a glass of spirits. You get to have a drink every time you take a piece. Get drunk quickly if you're doing well. I wouldn't get the drink. I'm terrible at chess. What if armies are like mostly warband and just keep pushing each other back and forth? Well, you're going to eventually end up having a pull. The tower's going to come over. The tower's going to come over. DBA drinking game. Yeah, I can't do it over there. I gotta drive home. You glorious bugger you. I don't know if you could use glorious and bugger in the same sentence, but you did. You managed to. Okay, well, that's it for me. It's almost 11 o'clock at night, and I got to get up. Maybe I will get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Maybe I'll set the alarm for 4 a.m. and see what happens. It's only 1 hour earlier than I normally wake up, and I'll get 2 hours worth of painting. I just don't want to paint for only, you know, a tiny little bit of time. So 2 hours isn't bad. We'll give that a shot tomorrow. So anyhow, thanks for stopping by, folks. Have a good night, and we will see you soon.